Hey, we're back. Welcome to Tool Talk. It's Amber.
And Heather.
And we are back today to talk about nutrition.
Yay!
It's my favorite thing to talk about.
Because we love food.
We do love food here. And hilarious story. So this morning, one of my clients had a book that she was sharing with me. She's actually going to let me take it home and read it. And she was showing me on the inside, it was an example. It's a marketing book. And it was saying, if you went to a personal trainer and you said, I would like to lose some weight, but I really think that it's my ice cream that I eat at night, but I love ice cream, but I do have it every night. And these were the responses. You got one of two responses. So you go to the one trainer and they say to you, you know what? I love ice cream too. Why don't we go get some together and talk about how we can make some changes? And then you go to the second personal trainer and they have a ripped body. And as soon as you say this, they take their shirt off and they show you that their abs can dance and they have a six pack and they say, I never put ice cream in my body. I think that you just need to eat kale and cabbage. And if you really want to do this, this is what you need to do. No more ice cream for you. Which personal trainer are you going to choose?
Oh boy, let's see. TikTok. I'm going to go with ice cream girl.
Yeah, so I said, that's why I have so many clients.
Because you love ice
Because
cream.
I love ice cream and they know it.
Yes.
And I have been known to go more have coffee or a meal or something.
But if there
with
was
the
ice cream
client.
available,
Yes.
you would have ice cream.
Oh, I would have
Yes.
ice cream, yes.
Yes.
But I've definitely had Betty Cake with people.
Yes.
So shout out to Betty Cake
Right?
in Ocala. Y'all are my
Yeah.
favorite cake place. All right, but let's talk about healthy food
Let's rein it back in.
and bring it back to a little bit of balancing that out. So one of the things that I really like to have our clients do is to take some time to track what they are eating and drinking. And I want to start off by saying that this is to give you data. I always tell my clients this. This is not something for you to look at and to feel badly about, or that we're judging you for what you're eating or drinking. It's not that at all. It's for us to be able to look at what you are eating and drinking and then seeing where we need to tweak and make a couple of changes here and there. And we also aren't the people who say, you can never have ice cream again.
No. And most people have no clue how much they're eating and drinking. It's very funny. I was thinking about this earlier and talking about tracking with food, and I'm thinking, so yeah, ask somebody, so how many calories do you have? Oh, I don't know. And then they'll throw out some random number. It would be like me asking you, how long is your car?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Nobody would know, right? So that's the way we are with food. We eat it. We think we're doing good, but most of the time we have no clue about what we're ingesting.
Yes.
And how much of it.
And so we are going to tackle that a little bit today. I want to say this is way more in depth than just one little podcast session can do for you, but maybe it can give you some ideas.
And a good place to start.
Yes. And I do want to say this. I have told you in the past before, we are not registered dietitians. We are certified nutrition coaches. And so we're not trying to tell you that this is exactly what you need to do, because nutrition is also something that is specific to the person and their situation. And there are a lot of people that need to be working with a registered dietitian and not just a nutrition coach like what we are.
Agreed.
But I also want to say here that what we are discussing today, if you in the past or now have had dealings with having an eating disorder or disordered eating, this may not be the right place for you to start. I do want to say that because this actually can be very triggering for people who have had to deal with that in their life. And I certainly don't want anything for you besides what is good for your health. Absolutely. So if you are in that category of person, I do want you to maybe turn this off and not listen. Let's listen to some of our other stuff.
Yes, go to a different podcast.
Yes, let's do that. So when we're talking about tracking, the reason why I have people do this is because of what Heather said. We really don't realize a lot of times what is going into our body. And I know from my own experience, when I've taken some time to track, maybe I don't do it all day. And then at night, I'm trying to remember what I've eaten. And then I'll wake up the next day and go, oh yeah, you had that package of M&Ms and you did not put that in there, So I go back and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Guilty.
Yes. Or you just totally forget that it was something you had. So doing this gives you that ability to really look at it through a lens of, okay, maybe I am eating a little bit more than I thought I was. So just for simple measurements, we use MyFitnessPal. There are a lot of different apps out there that you can use, but you can get the free version of this. It's very easy, and it does a decent job for what you need to do.
There's a lot of foods listed.
There's a lot of foods listed in there. And I will say this too, there's never ever going to be anything that is specific enough to give you an actual specific number. So this is just helping you to look at your nutrition program and see where you are on average.
And just as a side note, we never ask people to track for weeks on end. This is not like your lifestyle from here on out. It's just a few days, because that's the number one. Oh, I can't do that. There's no way I would ever remember. I'm like, good grief.
Yeah.
Just a couple of days. Just give me a couple of days. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, a couple of days. And definitely it's helpful to add in a weekend or 2 day in there.
Because we all know the weekend is not the weekday.
No. And many people have a set schedule or kind of some type of structure during the week that you may not have on the weekend. Now, that's generally talking. I know there are some people that are like, hey, Amber, I have a scheduled weekend.
Yes.
I get it. But a lot of the people that we work with don't have a scheduled weekend, so that can really throw you off. And sometimes looking at that, you realize, wow, I had no idea.
Yes, those pizza slices add up, and those restaurant meals that we tend to have on the weekend, if you're having more than one, it can add up.
Yes, and one of the things to note is you can totally undo what you've done during the week by having a cheat day. We don't say cheat here at the Training Tool, we say treat.
Yes.
But if you decide to have a treat day or multiple treat meals.
I will confess, I've had a treat weekend, and when Monday rolls around, I'm like, what in the world just happened to me?
Yes.
You know, it's hard. You have to stay focused.
You do. And you have to look at the weekend as if
it's just
they're
another day of the
day.
week.
Yes. So that is very important. And I'm glad that Heather mentioned that this isn't something we're going to tell you to do for months on end, because that's not realistic. But in the beginning, it helps you to be able to pinpoint where you might be struggling a little bit, or where maybe you're taking in too much fat, for instance, and you can easily adjust that.
And it also builds a base for accountability.
Yes.
Right? So you've got it written. You can see, once you see it written down somewhere, then it's kind of real, and your mind will always go back to looking at what you saw once you put in all your food and go, hey, you know, is this really a healthy choice for me? This is what I was doing before I started this, and it was way blown out of proportion. So it'll kind of, you know, trigger you back into reality where you need to be.
Right. And you get to know that, like, oh, yes, if I'm going to have that pizza, which I do sometimes on the weekends,
too,
that your fat is probably going to be really high at that meal. So maybe during the rest of the day, you kind of tamper that fat down a little bit. And I don't want to say save, but you save a little bit for that night. Or if you're someone who does really well and you eat healthy 90% of the time, you really don't have to worry about it. That one time of eating pizza is not going to throw you off completely. No. So there are a lot of behaviors to help you make sure that you're eating healthy the majority of the time.
And this is a good place to start.
Yes. So with MyFitnessPal, you just enter in. Now, here's where I find a lot of people make a little bit of a mistake. They guesstimate on how much they're eating. Really, if you are going to do this well, you need to measure out your portions.
Yes.
You need a food scale.
Yes.
And it does get a little difficult because you have to do math. And if you're not a math strong person,
I'm raising my hand if you could see me.
That it can be pretty difficult to do. I am not a math strong person, but I am nutrition and gym math like superior because I've done it for so long.
She just sat up a little taller in her seat.
I did. So when you do that, you do want to measure out your portions and actually weigh your food and see how much you are actually eating.
All right, so here is a little testimonial. When I first started with Amber, she told me this, and I poo-pooed on the idea for a long time. And then once my mind got right, I decided, so I had a little food scale. I weighed my food probably for a good 2 weeks, just to get a very good visual of how much I was consuming of what. And then once I had that in my mind, I haven't got that scale back out again, because you can look at your portion size and see, okay, this is how much of this protein that I need. This is how much of the carbs that I need. And let me just divert really quick, and I'm going to tell you a story about my dad and food scale. So me growing up in the household that I did, and him growing up in the household that he did, they were, his mama fixed big breakfast, big lunch, big dinner, and they would eat that way every day. And so his portion size was large. And he decided one day that he was going to make a change, and he just purchased a scale. And right now, today, his scale is sitting on top of his kitchen table. He has one here and one in their house in Kentucky. And when he sits down, he measures out his food, and he has been sustainably able to lose weight without really making any other changes other than just the portion size. Because I remember growing up, he would have like a bowl of cereal, and that bowl was like, a little bit of bowl with a lot of cereal.
Right.
And he realized how many portions that was. And by just going down to the recommended serving that he's supposed to have, he was able to lose weight. So if you're just looking for a starting point, like, oh, I don't want to freak out about food, just change your portion size, and that will make a huge start for you into the next phase.
Absolutely. And I've seen this be successful with a lot of my clients who have gone through this, and then, they'll tell me like, well, Amber, we used to go out for ice cream every Saturday, and I would always get a medium. And then I realized, okay, that is a whole heck of a lot of calories. So they switched down to a small. Right. They still ate the ice cream. They just had a smaller portion. And that is what we want to preach to you, is that you can have fun things in life. We're not going to tell you to eat kale and cabbage.
We are not those people. we do not live those lives, nor do we impress it on anyone else.
Absolutely not. And I am always so honest about my sweet tooth. I get it honest from my dad is a sweet eater, and I am a sweet eater. And I pretty much, if you're someone I know and I trust you, and you bring me something homemade that you've made that is a sweet, I'm going to eat it.
There she is, folks. She just said that was her saying, please bring me some homemade sweet stuff.
No, please don't. Please don't. I've had plenty of late. But yeah, so when you start doing this, let me tell you some things that you want to look at. And I've been doing this for so long, I can almost tell you without you even showing me your numbers, for my people who are struggling to lose weight. And I'm going to say the majority, you'll hear me talk about a special boat. So there are people in a special boat that you might be doing everything absolutely 100% right, but something's going on with your hormones, something's going on with your thyroid, something is happening. So there are some people that this is not going to pertain to. But for the majority of people that I work with, what happens is they aren't eating enough protein,
right?
And they're eating way too much fat.
Way too much fat.
Yes, every time. And we eat fat because it's delicious.
Yes.
All right? There's nothing wrong with it. But fat has more than double the amount of calories that protein and carbs do. So we don't realize a lot of times that our portion sizes for fat are just way too high. And in fact, when we use the hand as an example, your thumb, about the size of your thumb, is the serving size for oil, cheese, avocado, nuts, things like that. So it's not very much.
It is not.
So I've had clients come in and they're like, yes, they'll say, well, I'll never forget this one lady. She said to me, you measure out your olive oil? And I said, oh, yes, ma'am, that is a fat.
Pour it in the pan.
That's exactly what she did. She's like, I go around in circles. And I'm like, oh, dear, no, ma'am, you can't do that anymore. So, but a lot of people don't realize that that's a fat. Is it heart healthy? Absolutely. Do we need to have it? Yes. But 1 tablespoon is 14 grams of fat. and I think it's 120 calories if I remember correctly off the top of my head, and that's a lot. So if you're eating, I love roasted vegetables, or if I saute them, so if I'm just pouring that olive oil in there, it's a whole heck of a lot of fat with my veggies, and that's way too much. We don't need that much.
No.
So I don't want you to think from this podcast that you need to be numbers focused and that you got to track your food all the time. As Heather said, 2 weeks is a nice time because it gets you into a little routine, and you can look at what you're eating. But if you're like, that's too overwhelming, okay, just give me 3 or 4 days. Yeah, not a big deal. 3 days is usually good enough. And then what do you do with it from there? Well, MyFitnessPal is going to set up your numbers for you, and they are wrong.
Don't listen to them.
No, it's always too low.
Look away.
Yes.
We need calories to function.
Yes, and especially if you put in there that you want to lose weight, it's going to drop your calories way too low. That is something we don't do here because we know that in the long term is going to set you up for failure. So we do a very small decrease in the calories in order to get your body to start releasing some of that.
Because number one thing, this will not happen quickly.
Nope.
You have got to set up, when we talk about races, sprints, this is a marathon, a full-on like ultra marathon. You didn't get here overnight. You got to be willing to make changes throughout your life to make the lifestyle change.
Yeah, it has to be a lifestyle change. You have to change your portion sizes, change some of the quality of the food that you're eating, maybe not treat yourself so much.
Right.
Some of those things.
But you will see results, and these will be results that will be sustainable past whatever, like, a lot of these programs offer 60 days, lose 60 pounds or something like that. Well, what you're going to do when you get to the end of the 60 days and you're still not eating the way you were eating on the program, you're going to gain it all back. And that's what we're here to prevent happening. We want to set you up for good lifelong changes.
Yes. And there are many ways to calculate the number of calories that you should try to hit. Notice I said try because, again, this is a little bit of a science experiment. And this is where working with a coach who actually knows what they're doing can help you. Because if my client figures out their numbers and we start working on that, there are certain, I don't want to say behaviors, but there are certain things in the body that I look for. And if all of a sudden I start to see these red flags in their body, then that's telling me that this isn't right and we need to change something. So you may not know that because you aren't a nutrition and fitness professional like we are, but that's where it's very helpful to have a coach who can explain it.
And this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of dress. This is specific to the person, because the way you burn through calories versus the way I burn through calories and gather nutrition from food is totally different.
Yes.
So there is a generalized way to go about it. But like she said, if your body starts reacting different, you need to know how to handle that other than just quit or go to an extreme. And you don't want either one.
And what most people do, which sets them up for failure and for their body to fight against them with weight loss, and it really, when we want to lose weight, it's really fat that we want to lose.
Yes,
so when you're looking at fat loss, then we need some, yes, most of us have a little extra, and we want to, slim that down. There's nothing wrong with that. No. That's fine to have goals.
Yes.
But what most people do is they start exercising a whole ton and they cut their calories down really super low, and you will just burn out on that so fast.
Yes.
And your body actually slows down to match the amount of calories that you're giving it. So you don't want to do that with your body. You want your body to function well. You want to have energy. You want to sleep well. And then you just want to coax your body into that place where it's releasing the body fat.
Yes. So tell us about macros real quick.
So let me tell you about the macros. So when you look at calories and macronutrients, so I'm going to tell you a website, and also I'm going to put it in the show notes so you can look them up. And it is BMR. So that stands for basal metabolic rate. BMR calculator.org. If you go to bmrcalculator.org and you enter your information, it's going to ask you your sex, your height, your weight, your age, and it's going to spit out some numbers for you. Now remember, this is a science experiment. This is just a beginning place. There's a range of numbers there. And so it tells you your basal metabolic rate. That is the calories that your body is burning just to stay alive. And then there's a little breakdown of activity levels, and so you can actually choose which activity level you are. There's like one for little to no activities all the way up to an athlete. So then you get an idea of about where you should be with your calories. From there, you have to understand macronutrients. Macronutrients are protein, carbohydrates, and fat. We need all three.
All of them.
All three of them in our diets. I need you to turn
every day
off. Yes, every day. I need you to turn off your brain, shut out the diet culture. All of these diets, most diets cut out carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not bad.
They're good.
They are good for you. We eat all the food here at the Training Tool.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this and you're in one of those camps where I'm not even going to name them all, but I've had people try to contact me and tell me, like, show me your research. Listen, I ain't got to show you no research. There's plenty of research out there, but I have 30 years of working with people, and I can tell you what I do with people works, and I set people up for the long haul. So, or the long term. We're not damaging people here. We're keeping it nice and balanced. And so many times people focus on these minor little things. They worry about the minor things when you're not getting the major things to begin with.
And if you drop a macro, you will lose weight because your body is not getting enough calories, period. End of discussion. That is the reason why that diet worked for you.
Exactly.
But you cannot not have one of those at all forever, because your body's going to be like, what's happening? I need to get that source of nutrition from somewhere. Give it to me, or I'm going to start taking it from someplace else.
Yes. And so carbohydrates give us fiber.
Yes.
You need fiber.
You need to be regular.
You do need to be regular.
We all need for you to be regular.
Yes. And talk to somebody who hasn't gotten enough fiber in their diet and ask them what has happened. Besides being cranky, they also have digestive issues, and you can cause some really major things to happen to you.
And it's an important source of energy.
Yes.
So when you're bombed out, it's typically because you need to get some carbs in your system.
Yes. And brain fog. Why do you think people on diets are like, oh, I can't think?
Yes.
Because they're not eating carbs.
You need all three.
Yes. So when we look at that breakdown, there are some RDAs, some recommended daily allowances for each of the groups of macronutrients. I'm going to give you those numbers. This is a lot of sciencey stuff, and then I'm going to tell you a little something about it. So with carbohydrates, that's 45 to 65% of our total daily intake. Think about that. That's a large number. For most of us, it's half of our calories. But I don't want you in your head to be thinking bread.
I need to eat a load of bread.
Yes, right?
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, right?
But that's not what you're going to do.
The first thing you want to think of is fruits and vegetables, because those are carbohydrates.
Yes.
We need those. We get all of our vitamins and minerals from fruits and vegetables. Well, the majority of them. Then I need you to think about fiber. Where are you going to get fiber out of that? It could be beans. It could be a nice whole grain bread.
Yes.
It could be whole grain pasta. It can be quinoa, couscous, rice, oats. Yes, oatmeal. I love oatmeal. That's a great one. And you have so many potatoes, sweet potatoes. Those all have fiber in them. Tons of great carbohydrates that you can add into your diet to get that 45 to 65%. From there, we look at protein. Protein ranges from 10% to 35%. Personally, I believe that 10% is way too low, especially if you are someone who is active, if you are an over 30 person, if you are a female going through perimenopause or you're postmenopausal, your protein needs to be up. And that is really important, not only for us to feed our muscles, but also to feel satiated. So that I really like, especially my people who are working out, you're looking more up towards the higher end of the protein. And it also does help with weight loss if that's your goal, because it's helping you to preserve muscle mass, and it's also giving you enough food to feel satiated.
Now, we will have a totally separate podcast on protein sources. So don't get confused and get excited about all the little protein jars that are out there that say muscle mass and all that stuff. Stay away. We're talking about clean, lean protein here.
Yes.
Okay.
Lean protein. And also, y'all, unless something is wrong with you medically, the protein is not in your stomach like for days on end. It does take a little bit more time to break down, but you don't have this buildup of sludge in your body because you've eaten meat. That is a farce, just so you know. And if you don't believe me, ask your doctor.
Right?
Ask someone who works with gastroenterology or something like that. I'm sure they will agree. All right, now from there, we're going to fat. Everybody's favorite. So fat is 20 to 35% of your total daily intake. Now, when you look at this, I'm not saying you need to eat low fat. I'm saying you might want to shift it a little bit more towards the lower end, because when you're trying to get the protein up and the carbohydrates in the right place, the fat shifts down a little bit. So don't get real excited thinking you can have 35%.
And also think about the big picture. So we're breaking this down into the 3 parts. But a lot of times when people start a program that we have offered, they can't eat. They're worried about being able to eat enough.
Yeah.
Right? So don't think that this means that you're starving yourself.
No
because
way.
That is a farce as well. You will realize that, oh my gosh, I can eat all day long and still remain in my caloric intake range and all of my macro ranges. So just settle down. I can hear y'all getting excited in your seats about, oh my God, I'm going to starve myself. You will not. I promise you.
It's plenty of food. And the interesting thing is when you actually shift to a healthier nutrition plan where you are eating the right amounts of the breakdown of the macronutrients, carbs, protein, and fat, you feel more satiated.
Yes.
Your energy is up. You tend to sleep better. But also the other thing is you get to eat a greater volume of food. I want you to think about something really quickly. Think about if you are one of those people that sits down with a bag or a box of something. So I'm going to say potato chips. Now, I'm going to tell you a little something here. I love Ruffles cheddar and sour cream. Those are my favorite potato chips. I do not buy those and put them in the house because I would eat the whole entire bag. If I did eat that whole entire bag, it's probably going to be somewhere around, I don't know, 1,100 calories. I'm not sure. I didn't look this up before we did it. So what's very interesting, I want you to go to my YouTube channel and I want you to find where I said protein bars are not the best choice. What I did, I know you're like, wait, we went from chips to protein bars. But the reason why is because I want to show you the difference between let's say a whole food where you're eating healthy whole foods. That would be something like I had some chicken breast, I had some broccoli, I had a sweet potato, versus me eating the whole entire bag of the potato chips, which is basically just fat, carbohydrates, and a ton of sodium, right? So I can eat a lot more of the whole foods, the volume of the whole foods compared to the volume of the potato chips.
Yes.
And get the same amount of calories, but get everything that I need.
And I'm a grazer, so I like quantity, so that works well for me.
Yes. And when you figure that out, if you're somebody, I have worked with people who have a very high hunger feeling.
Yes.
They do. And so they need to eat more volume. That is a possibility.
Yes.
You just have to know how to eat the right things.
Right. You don't have to starve yourself.
No. And you can fit the potato chips in, but then you don't have to eat the whole bag.
Don't eat the whole bag.
Yes. So that's just a little break into the macronutrients nutrients. There, like I said, this goes way more in depth.
Way more.
So make sure that if you found this interesting and you want to know more about nutrition, you definitely listen to more of our nutrition podcast, because I will be talking about that a lot. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I can talk about it for hours on end.
She can. I've heard her do it.
I know, it's terrible.
But she has a great workshop
Yes.
that she's going to offer that you can tune into.
So I am going to put down in the show notes the information of Understanding Macros. This is a workshop that I have recorded, and you can get the link down there to purchase that. You can watch it as many times as you want to. And if you have questions, you can feel free to email me. I'll be glad to try to answer those for you. But it goes a little bit deeper into understanding macros. There's a little worksheet that goes along with it. So if you really liked this, I hope that you will click on that link down there and just check it out.
Yes, thanks for joining us today. This was a long one, but boy howdy, we need to talk about it. So feel free to like, subscribe, share with all your friends. Until next time.
All right, we'll see you. Bye.
Bye.